At 5:30, I will call the meeting to order. Up first, we have the new employee introduction. Blake Diesel?
DeZiel.
DeZiel. Okay, DeZiel. Chad, do you want to start off?
Sure, just a quick introduction with Mayor and the Council. Blake DeZiel lives in Belle Plaine, has experience in construction and equipment operation, likes to snowmobile in the winters. So he's all ready for the teachers to lie.
All right, so yeah, as it's our tradition, we always ask the new folks not to put them in the hot seat, although unintentionally that does that. But I truly think it gives us a good idea, a good way of getting to learn a little bit more about you. So if you're game, and you can always say no, go ahead.
All right, I've been to 5 different countries. I'm related to the first Prime Minister of Canada, and I was an extra in the Mighty Ducks movie.
Okay, so we've got to guess which one's the lie. 5 countries.
I'm gonna say 2. I'm gonna go 3.
And Chad knows, so you're not playing.
I know, yes.
Okay, well, everybody thinks that number 3 thinks. Oh no,
I
Brenda
went on
doesn't
one.
think you were an extra. All right, which one's the lie?
Number 3.
Oh, right. Who was the first Prime Minister of Canada?
It was a Trudeau.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And what was that? 5 different countries. What are they?
So Mexico, Canada, the Dominican Republic, Ireland, and Amsterdam.
All right. Good. Well, welcome to the City of Carver. We appreciate you coming in. We'd like to get to know you guys. So you are absolutely welcome to stay for the work session. Listen to us talk about our budget.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, it was nice meeting all of you.
Thanks for coming in.
Yep.
Meet you, Blake.
All right. Item number 3, the draft 2024 general fund budget. Shooty and Brent.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor and Council. So I'm going to start and give kind of like a general overview, and then Lynn's going to come in and start talking about some of the details and the numbers. And as we put this together, we kind of think of this as kind of ingredients and making something where, you know, the department heads are working with their teams, kind of building a budget based on what they see. Lynn and I review that and kind of apply it to what we see from an economic perspective. And then a really important part, obviously, is the council kind of taking what you see, you know, adding some more in this area or taking some out that area. So the point of this is to say that this isn't a finished product, and that without we need your feedback in order to complete the project, if you will. And so just a kind of a baseline explanation of our budget. So we have 3 buckets that we have a tax levy out of: our general levy, which is police, fire, parks, planning, etc. Admin, nothing to do with water, sewer, stormwater. Our debt service levy, so that's bonds and debt service that we've previously taken out, that through a resolution the council has agreed to pay through a debt service payment. And then the street maintenance levy, which is something that the council kind of added. I think this is our 3rd or 4th year. The council took a real strong look at franchise fees to fund our pavement management plan, and said, you know, we're not going to do franchise fees. We're going to be attempt to be real transparent with where that money's going. So we're going to adopt a street maintenance levy, and that money, dollar for dollar, will go towards our pavement management plan. So when looking at, you know, what you're getting with our first draft, it's a total of a 15.6% increase from 2023. So that's the general levy, that's the debt service levy, and the street maintenance levy combined. We would like to be in a situation where we can show you what the tax impact to that is. It's really hard, as you can imagine, in a growing community, to understand what the need is, because as it goes up, you want to see what that impact is, but we don't have the tax information from Carver County to share with you right now. We will, and believe we will have that information at your next work session on September 5th. Likely we'll have it prior to then. And when we get that, we'll just shoot that right out to you so you can be a little bit more prepared for that September 5th meeting. We're not having to face a significant market value change. Last year we had about a 20% increase to overall values of the city. That's just under 5%. So we'll still show you like a $300,000 house last year versus what it is this year by that value increase. But it won't have that significant increase of 20%. But none the same, you'll still be able to look and compare and contrast those numbers. So some key budget initiatives, and there are 2 main areas where we're proposing to the council that you can kind of redistribute revenue streams within the general fund, and the first is the special capital fund. As you can see at the table at your right, since 2017, we've been taking money from the special capital fund and transferring it as a means to defray operation costs on an annual basis to the general fund. And the special capital fund revenue source is basically your surplus from the previous year. So money that wasn't spent or money that was taken in a number of years ago, the city sold a permanent easement for that cell phone to that cell phone carrier. It was American Tower behind the Public Services Fire Station building. That money went into the special capital fund. Excuse me, so it's not always a budget surplus. The interesting piece to that, as you can see, is over time that becomes a relied upon revenue stream. So from 2017 through 2023, that's 7 years. For the 22 audit, we didn't make a transfer into the special capital fund, so that revenue stream is kind of getting tighter, and so we're seeing this as maybe it's not all the way 100%, but that's where we're starting, where we don't want to get into continuous funding from special capital to the general fund as a kind of a way to provide debt service or, levy relief. You can see we have $314,000 in the special capital fund, so you do have the ability to adjust that number, but long term we don't think it's a appropriate strategy to rely on that as a consistent means to fund the general fund operating budget. I'm just going to kind of keep rolling, and if you have questions or want to comment at the end, feel free to do that. Permit revenue, so that consists of building permits, but also liquor license fees, planning fees, etc. We're planning for about the same number or same amount of revenue as it relates to building permit fees. As you know, that housing permit application revenues can kind of go up and down. We still have quite a bit of lots left in Timber Creek, Brookview, but we're also anticipating the CDA project to come in and some possibly an industrial and commercial project in 2024. In addition, we'll have liquor license fees from Mizzy's and the Getaway Motor Cafe. A second piece, kind of following up on the not using the special capital fund as a consistent revenue stream, is similar to how we've used local government aid. So that's an aid provided to cities from the state of Minnesota. It's a somewhat complex formula that consists of population, pre-1940s housing, accidents in your community. Well, the state adjusted their methodology for calculating that state aid, and so we did increase that aid from about $120,000 to $210,000. In the past, we've again been using that as kind of a general operating revenue stream. What we're proposing, and this is somewhat connected to the strategic plan, is connecting that with trying to build a capital fund so that we can reduce our reliance on debt service and start to build capital funds out of cash that we can use to buy vehicles and equipment, make repairs to parks, so on and so forth. So that combination of using local government aid for capital and not using the special fund related to operations has provided, close to about a $300,000 revenue stream shift. So just for some kind of back of the napkin calculations, if you added that $100,000 of special capital fund revenue back into the general fund to offset costs, your preliminary levy goes from 15.5% to 13%. If you use all the LGA for operating, you go from 15.5% down to about 7.5%. So you can see on a somewhat smaller budget, considering the size of our community compared to maybe some of our neighboring cities, that $300,000 makes a significant impact to what that overall preliminary levy looks like. And again, the levy only tells one part of the story related to what taxes do. It's having that estimated market value and looking at tax impact that gives you that full picture.
Brent, have we ever not got LGA? Have they ever had a year that they've actually cut it? I know they do. I see you say they threaten it. They do, but I don't think it's ever actually been cut, has it?
Yeah, it's, the last time they cut it was, I hadn't started here, but I was in Winstead, but they had cut, I think it was at '08 or '09 by maybe close to $100,000 or $150,000, depending upon the city. There were different amounts. But then, you know, that was kind of, that's the example that a lot of cities will use when talking about it. It's consistently talked about, but it's only been that one time in the last 15 years when it actually has been cut.
And it wasn't cut completely. It was just reduced a lot, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And for some cities, it was cut completely. It just depends on, you know, the aid amount. Some city, like, there are some cities that get millions of dollars for this. There are Chanhassen, Victoria, get none. We get 200,000, so everyone has kind of their different story related to local government aid.
Okay.
Remember Jim Nash, the year that we were gonna get the snowplow, was very concerned and kind of gave us the warning about them taking a real look at that year.
I mean, it's always a threat, but at one time in 15 years, so, okay, thank you.
We are fortunate to be receiving one-time public safety aid in 2024. Our total amount of anticipated funding is just over $256,000. So we're proposing that the following spend, taking just under $175,000 and dedicating it toward the future construction for turnout gear storage, whatever that may end up looking like. Acquisition of 2 Chevy Tahoe trucks from the city of Chanhassen. Chief Trimble's working on that and is presenting something to the fire board on Monday, the 28th. But what that does is takes out a command vehicle out of our capital equipment plan that the team's going to be presenting here shortly. We're also anticipating about a $45,000 increase to our contract police coverage. That's primarily moving from that 8-hour to a 12-hour patrol shift. So we end up getting more coverage, but that combined with the updated collective bargaining agreement for the deputies led to a significant increase. So we're looking to mitigate that and spread that over 2 years by adding about $22,000 from that one-time public safety aid, so that so that impact won't be as significant. And then finally, kind of related to something that we talked about at a previous meeting, funding for digital speed signs in areas that we won't have construction projects. So we'll have construction on 4th Street, Mount Hope Road, the Main Street, Broadway corridor, but Ironwood, Spring Creek Drive, and 4th Street West won't have any mill and overlay or construction projects. So proposing to fund 3 signs for installation in 2024.
Does that 10.5 cover the 3 signs?
Yeah, each sign is about $3,300 to $3,500, depending upon the vendor that is chosen. Pavement management plan. So per the plan, we're planning a $100,000 increase to the street maintenance levy from $320,000 to $420,000. The team is going to be presenting on an updated pavement management plan at a future meeting that'll take it from 5 years to 10 years. But the 2024 projects include the mill and overlays that you see on the table. Also some seal coating projects. Well, those are the first half of those seal coatings, especially for Kirchie and High. Those will be completed in 2025. It's just I think our budget for seal coating within the pavement management plan annually is about $30,000. So this does half of those roads. And then we're doing a full reclamation to 4th Street West from JCP to Elm, but that's within our municipal state aid road program. So that state aid funding will be covering that amount. Ooh, do not want to do that. Debt service levy. So this is kind of in that second bucket. We did finish up repayment of the 2015 B refunding bond, which relieves just under $102,000 from our debt service obligation. The council has talked about on a number of occasions adding an equipment certificate in 2024, and then the possibility of some components of future public services fire station expansion project Any debt service that the council would take out in 2024 would hit the debt service levy beginning in 2025. So not anything that you need to contemplate specifically, even though you want to be thinking about it, but nothing that impacts the 2024 budget. Community survey, we did get an estimate from the Morris Leatherman group. That's the same group that conducted our community survey in 2020. They gave us a number of 22,000. I did add an additional 2,000 they charge per additional question, so this gives you a little contingency should you want to ask additional questions that are beyond the initial scope. So that will involve inviting Peter from that Morris Leatherman group out to a work session. He'll go over a set of standard questions. The council will have an opportunity to add, amend, delete, etc. And then we'll use that to identify a lot of the initiatives that we identified in the strategic plan. Classification and compensation study, this is something that the council has already approved to move forward. It's funded in the 2024 budget. The impact as far as allocation of additional salaries or pay changes would come to you in your 2025 budget. We should be able to get this information in the spring of 24, which will give the council hopefully plenty of time to ramp up for whatever impact that you choose related to the impacts of that overall study. Southwest Prime Service, I think this is kind of, I would call this almost a keynote piece for the council to consider related to budget, not just in 2024, but long term. So we're averaging about a $2,800 spend on Southwest Prime Service. So just kind of doing the math on that, adding a little bit of inflation, we're taking that budget from 20,000 to 36,000, and exchanging some correspondence with Southwest new CEO Eric Hansen. They are contemplating an increase to the city's cost. So as you know, we went from $10 to $12 for cost match. They're considering increasing that $12 piece. They're also considering kind of the overall cost. So that's a TBD, but I think the message that I take from that is things are not only on the incline cost-wise, but use-wise. And so thinking about not only how Southwest Prime impacts the 2024 budget, but thinking about how we're going to be ramping up and what you want that service to look like in the following years, 25, 26, 27, and how that aligns with where we're taking bus transit going forward, that service that we have through the operations grant. And Aaron and the new CEO will be presenting in a series of work sessions this fall to kind of repackage that and give you an idea of where we're sitting and what the future may look like. That said, both of these services are in different funding pools, so the bus transit is its own thing, and the prime service is its own thing, even though they're coming from the same service provider.
So they're looking to increase the city's cost, but are they increasing the cost for the riders?
I don't have that information yet. The information I have now is if they're doing a cost analysis.
Okay. And what was the increase again? Say it again.
We went from 10 to 12, and Aaron, do you have that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so for every other year that we had Prime, it was $10, and then last year it increased to 12, so it would be 2 consecutive years of increase.
Right. And what were they looking for the next one?
They're in the middle of the analysis.
Oh, they haven't said anything specifically.
Right, other than most likely there would be an increase. And so the message that staff sent back to Southwest is that we have to set our preliminary levy in September, so that if you do have an increase, the sooner that we get that information, the better, so that the council has time to, navigate that discussion and then figure out what the impact is to the 2024 budget.
Just knowing that organization, they're gonna be so busy with State Fair now through Labor Day, we're gonna have to keep asking.
Yeah, because my question really is if they're just expecting the cities to eat all the cost of their cost increase, or if they're gonna pass that along, so it's a shared increase between the people who are riding and the city. Because we already pay, what, 2/3 of it?
I don't know what the ratio is. I know we're paying 12, I don't know what the total cost is.
It's definitely less for the rider. It was 5 for a long
I thought it
time.
went to 6.
I think
didn't
it went to 6.
So a third.
Yeah, so I'll continue pressure then when I'm in those meetings to stay on target, so we don't get another surprise end of the year.
we can't even have an October 1st surprise, we need to know
Yeah.
in the
Well,
next 2 weeks.
is that when we need to know?
Yeah, we
Because then
start
it's worth a
preliminary
call to
levy.
Eric to make sure that they expedite that to us. All right.
Well, they're aware, I mean, I was communicating with Eric today, he's
Were
aware.
you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's make sure that it's clear that he knows would like to know by September, whatever our first meeting is.
We met with him a couple of weeks ago and explained that that was one of the reasons we had to reduce service, as we had an increased cost we hadn't budgeted for, so we don't want to have that obviously happen again.
Then employee related, we're funding two, I'll say kind of in air quotes, are two full-time positions. The superintendent, our utility superintendent, we're proposing or we're hiring, applications this close. Chad and I are scoring the applicants right now. But it'll be fully funded in 2024, and then adding a utilities a general technician 3, so that's kind of our entry level position in public services. Just under a $40,000 impact to the general fund. The plan shows a 5% across the board pay increase for both part-time and full-time employees, just under $160,000 impact. We still are in the process of negotiating a new two-year collective bargaining agreement. We have a new negotiating session planned for next Wednesday. So hopefully we'll be able to wrap that up shortly. Kind of a budget outlier with Kathy's retirement in July. We do have 2 months of overlap for that accountant position. So although kind of in speaking it seems relatively small, the budget impact is about $15,000. And so when we're in this mode of trying to kind of finesse different ways to be more efficient, it's just one thing that we'll have to add that we wouldn't in normal years, but still has a significant impact.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
So I don't have a problem with a slight overlap, especially since Kathy's been here so long. Why 2 months rather than just 1 month? Because, I mean, having a month overlap, we don't see that a lot in places. And 2 seems a little excessive to me.
Yeah, I think just with how long she's been here and the number of tasks that she does that I'm not involved in currently, I think just being able to do them 2 times rather than 1 time, such as, bank reconciliations. The first time you do it, you're kind of watching, the second time you do it, you're doing it. And different things like that are why we chose to kind of go 2 months instead of 1.
And to Lynn's point, I would offer it's a little bit of a belt and suspenders for finance where, if you were hiring a tech 3 to do snow plowing, you can kind of show someone how to do that plowing. And if they maybe go off the curb line and go into someone's yard, it's going to cost us some money for seed and labor in the spring. If we make significant errors in the finance area, there are kind of ripple effects. And so is it maybe more than what you could get by with? Yes, but I think to make sure that we don't have anything missing, we think it's worth the investment. Health insurance premiums come out in October, so we did plan for a 10% increase. You'll see health insurance at a 10% increase, but we are expecting that to be a reduction of about 5%, and so there's a little bit of wiggle room there that we can take the budget down. Then obviously there'll be things that the council might want to increase, decrease, etc. We also got verification from Para that we can increase, this consistent with that 5% across the board, increase the retirement benefit level for the firefighters from $4,000 to $4,200 by $200 without an additional investment by the city. And then kind of the last thing I'll have before I turn it over to Lynn is just that focusing on the capital and using cash as a means to build that capital. And so this gets into that special capital fund and local government aid, and you can hopefully see kind of where we're moving here. So public services is probably the worst example to start with because we're going from $100,000 to 0. But we are contemplating just over $750,000 worth of investment in capital equipment through an equipment certificate. We do think that can be restored in 2025. We do have capital going towards, as you see later in this table, the city's match for the 3rd Street Bridge project, so we have to cover anything flood related because that's not required for any bridge construction. So we're getting bridge bond funds, which funds the lion's share of that, except for the improvements that we'd make to flood-proof that bridge. Going from 0 to 15,000 for fire capital to help us pay for small equipment and vehicles in our 10-year plan. 0 to 36,000 to re-roof the church by the river. 0 to 25,000 to insert into parks capital. Multi-year plan to resurface the courts at Lions Park, tennis and basketball. The costs on that have exploded, so we have a $300,000 estimate to redo that work or redo those courts. So our plan is 25,000 in 24, 50 in 25, and then in 25 do the project, and then fund the remaining through an interfund loan, and then preceding years levies, you would pay that loan back to get that project fully funded.
Talk to me about resurfacing. So I know those are asphalt slabs up there.
Yes.
So is it like the street where you're gonna have to go down, or you're gonna have to do, tell me why 300,000?
Because of the way it was constructed initially, there's, it would have to be completely torn out and redone.
Okay, so this, when we say resurface, it's actually a redo?
Yes.
Thing? Okay. So, because the term resurface makes me think, oh, we're just gonna top cover it, that's why I was thinking.
Fresh coat of paint. There's
$1,000.
some significant cracks in the surface, and then the fencing is an issue.
Because it's been crack filled before, so.
Then street maintenance, as we talked about, from 320 to 420, and then as I mentioned, the 3rd Street Bridge project. In other years, we might have done an interfund loan or taken from special capital to fund something like that, which you're still obviously available. You can do. This is a budget strategy, so again, once you hear all the information, once you see ask the questions that you'd like to ask, that might be something that you either might want to say yes, we want to do that, or no, we don't, or a combination of the two. So with that, I'm going to throw it over to Lynn to give you a more hardcore look at the numbers.
All right. So 2024 preliminary general fund budget, Brent did a great job introducing kind of what we've talked about the last few weeks as we worked on the numbers over and over again. So just quick overview of the schedule tonight. We're at the work session where we're going to discuss the first run at this budget. Oops. And then work session on September 5th, we should have all of the information from Carver County where we can look at that average valued home and the tax impact to that, as well as some other, like the $300,000 home, some of the higher valued ones, and look at that. The drop dead date for adopting the preliminary levy would be our meeting on the 18th. And that's where we set the highest amount that the levy can be. And then that's, we can obviously go down from there, but we cannot go up. So that is an important date. And then in October, we'll be refining numbers as health insurance comes in, dental insurance, and different things, numbers come in. But then I will be presenting with Tammy Omdahl from Northland Securities, the long-term financial plan, and then also be working on the enterprise fund budgets throughout October and November. Another important date is in December on the 4th. We have our taxation public hearing, as well as the 18th, we will present the final budget as well as certifying the 2024 tax levy. So financial objectives for 2024, you know, the biggest one I think that we've really been working on is the long-range planning, and that works into our strategic priorities of enhanced financial strength, and then I think just improving operations, responsive development, all of them. And so we're really working on our strategic priorities for 2024 and beyond while we're putting together the budget. So some key revenue items for 2024. As Brent mentioned, our local government aid did increase for 2024. As you can see, the 23 amount was 121, which decreased from the year before. So this is great news for us, our local government aid increasing for this year. We have a one-time public safety aid of $256,000, and that's from the 23 omnibus tax bill, and we should receive that money right at the end of this year. There is no deadline of when we can use that. It just has to be used to provide public safety. And so things like fire and, you know, law enforcement, different things like that. But there are specific things you cannot use it for, so I can send you a link to that if you wish. Building permit revenue, we plan to keep this number kind of consistent with what we have planned for 2023 at $700,000. A lot of different items go into building permit revenue, not just new constructs. We have basements and roofs and, you know, windows. So that number it's a science to come up with. So, and then our rural fire contracts, we have 2 townships, I believe, that we contract with, and so that number continues to get a little bit smaller as Carver gets bigger and a lot of our services go to the city of Carver.
I have a question about the building permit revenue.
Yeah.
And this might be more for Aaron or Brent. When I was looking at the monthly reports, I don't have it open right in front of me. I think we were talking, or the information that was in there is that our building permit revenue, we're at 41%, and we're over half year, so are we over projecting on what we think our permit numbers are coming in at? Permit revenue numbers are coming in at?
I don't think so. I think we give ourselves some wiggle room every year. August is gonna look really good, frankly. We have 22 townhomes go out, plus several single family.
Okay.
I think it's just an ebb and flow. That it was, I wouldn't say we had a slow summer, but compared to last year we did.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we're well within what we feel comfortable with between our guardrails.
And you're right, I mean, they're just projections. I would say that typically we do lag behind, and that when you get to like August, September, October, we usually get a rush on new applications because the contractors are trying to, like, one, get permits issued before the end of the year, but also two, they are trying to get permits issued for this year's fee schedule, because when they're adopted or they're applied for and then issued in 24, that's new sack and whack charges. So we do see an influx in permits, so we tend to lag behind. Doesn't mean it's going to be exactly right, but our tendency is to show just what you're seeing right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll echo what Aaron said with being busy in August. I know that Natalie's just been cruising through a lot of permits in August. So I saw that number 2 in July, and I was like, shoot, too bad we can't put on the August one show council. So, yeah.
Line spoiler.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So 2024 general fund revenues for the budget, we're projecting, you know, most of our budget for revenues does come from property taxes from the residents. And then the next biggest piece of the pie is the building permits. A lot of us are visual learners, so I just threw that slide on here for you. Some general fund expense highlights. Our police contract is at $314,000 for 2024. Brent mentioned it's going up a little bit this year. Chaska Park and Rec agreement. Southwest Prime, we just started it out at $36,000, and that's up for council discussion. And then spring cleanup, we have some public works ARC study. This is something that doesn't happen. I tried to put some things on here that don't happen every year, such as the community survey, as well as the compensation and classification study. The reason you're seeing $19,000 and $18,000 there is because these are just amounts that affect the general fund, whereas there's going to be amounts that affect water and sewer as well.
Chad, would you mind sharing what the ARC study is with the council?
So there's a a policy in place that we need to protect the staff in going into electrical areas that are rated differently. So the arc flash study, we have a company come out and rate everything. So 480 volt, we need to stay with 6 feet away from it. We shouldn't go into it. So it really looks at every facility and rates the electrical components of every building, every facility, and lets people know, if they are safe to enter it.
How do they come and test that? They just
Too far.
Council members are asked.
Everyone here with a perm, then we know.
Nominating tribute.
I think Paul volunteers.
Right.
Yeah, Paul's done that a few years ago.
Again, so for us visual learners, 2024 general fund expenses, you can see public services. I mean, we have a lot of streets and parks, and so that takes a lot of expense. And then admin and fire, just lots of pretty colors here. Employee pay and benefits. So we have 2 new hires. The public service tech 3, general focus. The utility superintendent, we're actually hiring in 23, but we're gonna have the full wage in 2024. Benefits, health and dental. So we are assuming a 10% increase for now, and possible switching of dental might decrease that amount because we'd be on health partners for both. Proposing a 5% wage increase for all departments, and I proposed a pay scale adjustment to 6% a couple meetings ago per the union agreement. So the financial impact on all of what I just said is about $160,000 increase in general fund wages from 2023. 54,000 of that would be from the new hires alone, and then 35,000 in increase from the health insurance. So what did not make the cut for 2024 when we had a much higher levy increase? We cut some reservation software. That's for making automatic reservations. Residents would go online, they would choose the park or the facility that they would want to rent. They would make the reservation online, and then it would automatically book it out. We cut that. Tilt bed, roller, and trailer for paving, we cut that and we're going to lease it for the next few years. Tennis court contribution, originally scheduled for $100,000 this year, decreased it to $25,000. Fire department, originally scheduled a $50,000 to start, beefing up that fire capital fund, decreased that down to $15,000. And then we had talked about a maintenance engineer position. It's similar to a captain, but they would do kind of small repairs, oil changes, different things like that. So they would receive like a captain rate, I believe, annually. So we did decide to postpone that and talk about a maintenance position with public services. So all of those things put together on the chopping block decreased the preliminary levy by $190,000. So what's changing in 24? The average valued home is increasing from $410,000 to $428,000. The new construction value add is $56 million this year. Last year it was $78 million. The estimated population, you can see it there. We're estimating about 160 new homes for next year. And speaking to that, we're hoping the CDA project is why that number is beefed up a little bit.
How many years was that?
70,
Phase 1 would be 60.
60.
60. Okay, so for actual new homes, then outside of that, it's down a little bit. Correct.
Yeah. And then, as we talked about, the LGA special capital devoted to operations, last year we had $221,000. This year, we're proposing to pull back and not do any of that. We're just going to put that toward capital. So this slide I'd like to present, it just shows the market value data and the new construction, the total value change. So overall it's 11%, but for residential it's a 4.5% increase to market value. Again, the average value home is $428,000 in the city of Carver. Another visual, just so you can see the different values over the years that have been added. Again, I like to remind residents that you get your home valuation, you get it on your property tax statement, and we we contract with the Carver County Assessor's Office, and they are the ones who assign the value to your home. So if you're unhappy with it or you think it's wrong, please contact the Assessor's Office. It is supposed to be set at market value, which is a misconception. A lot of people think it should be set at 75 to 80% of market value. So contact them. This is a slide from last year because unfortunately we do not have the Carver County market value tax capacity data to fill this in. But as of last year, we were at a 37.43 city tax rate. Again, no franchise fees at the city of Carver. So our debt service preview for the general fund, we are decreasing by 8.5% because of that 2015B refunding is falling off. So we're at 1.2 million for the debt service levy. Tell me to slow down if I'm going too fast. I just know we have a big presentation tonight from a lot of people. Our street maintenance levy and pavement management plan, this is year 3 of our street maintenance levy. So we are at 420,000 plan for 2024 levy. The big street that we're doing this year is 4th Street, and that would be a reclamation. And then you can see the nearby mill and overlays that are planned, as well as the seal coatings.
Just to note, Elm Drive West is included in the images from our previous pavement management plan, but Aaron Schmidt and the engineering team is recommending to add Elm Drive West, which we have the capacity to take on.
Yeah, thank you.
By capacity, you mean like we can get it done in that time frame, or we have the money to do it?
We have the money and the time.
Thanks.
So here's a little history on our total general fund levy. You can see the total levy amounts right in that. It goes from 3.2 to 3.8 from 2021 to 2023. And then you can see the percentage increases. Last year we were at a 6.86 final levy increase. And today we're proposing a 15.64% increase. Capital improvement needs. So I stated the source of funds because it gets a little confusing when we're talking about taking out equipment certificates and such. But when we're talking about specific projects, Church by the River roof, I try to make this as most explanatory as possible. So this would be a transfer from the general fund to the capital improvement fund. The tennis court resurfacing, 25,000 general fund, and so on and so forth. So everything in red there would be an equipment certificate. And I did note that the amounts in bold will appear in the budget and that all others will be funded elsewhere. So basically the equipment certificate you're not going to see on the budget in 2024, that will be showing up in 2025. Still to come, as I mentioned, tax capacity information from Carver County, final health insurance costs, collective bargaining agreement information for 2024, 2025, and then vacant position pay and benefit data for 23. So if we're hiring the superintendent and he's got a family medical, all of that kind of information will affect the 2024 budget. So what do we need to do today? I'm looking for comments, questions, direction to integrate into the next draft. And the next steps would be putting all of that information into the September 5th draft, as well as what I received from Carver County, and then we'll work toward the preliminary levy. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Questions, comments, thoughts? Lori?
Yeah, I can't get out of my mind the tennis courts and that dollar amount. So I don't know if we have any other options or if council wants to talk about. It's just an amenity that I'm not very familiar with too, but that seems, and I realize that we're gonna kind of save up the money, but I'm always interested in how to spend those park dedication dollars, so if it was a new amenity.
Yeah. What might help is, I know that we're presenting later on the parks and the different needs that are coming up in the next 10 years. It might help to wait and hear a little bit more on that presentation. When is that coming up?
September 18th.
Oh, September 18th. So, and because there's a lot of even like parks that need repairs
Yeah.
and stuff that you'll maybe even go, oh, snap, like that's a lot of money for that even. So, but I agree.
And you're not alone, and like, I called Paul and I've talked to the team, like, how can this be 300,000 looking at what it was, I think it was 2013 or 2014 when they were redone, and that's just what it is, and we feel pretty secure in that price. Could there be fluctuations? Yes. I think the key thing on park dedication is it can't be used for maintenance.
Yeah.
And there have been cities that have gotten or tried to get creative with that and have been sued, so juice isn't worth the squeeze on that. But if the council wants to look at, is that a priority? Long term, we're not investing anything in parks capital, so whether it's the courts or something else, putting 25,000 away for, at some point, we're gonna have to replace the playground and community park. You'll want to, at least in our opinion, establish some seed money to get that off the ground at some point.
Is that the only tennis court in town?
Yes.
And it's pretty heavily used.
Okay. I think I'm gonna have to have that be my route for a little while.
Steve.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. It's a good burger.
It's uphill both ways.
Any other thoughts, Lori?
No, just because it's organized really well, and after a few years, I'm starting to pick up some of it. Just kind of like, in my terms of like, okay, what buckets and. Christy?
This is just the overall overarching number. We're looking at this 15.64% increase. I have a real hard time looking at the residents and our constituents and saying, yeah, we're gonna raise this by 15%. After we just went down to something like 6. And what was 2022 that was 11, that brought us up to 11.9? Do you remember what we?
The first,
Big.
it looks like the first street maintenance levy, if I took just one quick look at it.
Okay, I don't know if there was anything, major that came out.
Was
Other
JCP
than-
in there?
Yeah, we went from, like, the street maintenance went from, so it was embedded in the general fund levy, but we were only budgeting, like, I think it was like 70 to 80,000, so there was a $150,000 increase there.
Oh, and some debt, it looks like.
Yeah, and it's hard because when we're talking about debt too, we had 8.5% fall off. And yet our increase is still a total of 15.6, and that's really high.
I will agree with you. What I will say to that is we don't have all of the numbers from Carver County, so we can't look at the tax impact to the average valued home. Second, I will say that last year, the impact to the average valued home decreased. The
That's my house
taxes.
did.
Exactly.
I know, I
to
was
the
wondering
average
you.
valued home. So, it's hard to get the numbers right, and, yeah, it's up to you guys
Yeah.
to figure out what you wanna.
And I know that this is the outside range, to set it at. I just have, I'm having a really hard time with that number. So,
Is there an area you want to be looked at, or a strategy you want reconsidered?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I
you
mean,
know,
I would
I'm
say,
looking
like-
at it, it's kind of,
I would say, like, part of it is proportionate, is, yes, it's 15%. I think when you get that tax capacity number, you might be able to look at like what the net impact is, and it still might not be in your comfort zone. But we've kind of used this analogy a gazillion times, but growing family, that grocery bill is gonna get larger because we're adding basically 500 people per year. And so your costs, at least your priority right now to like add for future costs and plan for that is making that number large. I think, like, I hear your message, I think the team hears your message. I think it's a matter of then getting that information and seeing how that, proportionately, how that new tax capacity number intersects with that, but we feel the same. Like, when I saw the the first one was like 22-23%.
Yep.
And this,
please don't show that to me.
I know, we had
well,
more
just
conversations.
just politically, I just said I think the council's gonna have a hard time looking at anything 20. So our mission was to try to get it to at least in the neighborhood of 15. But we also recognize that this is the biggest policy document that you make a decision on. And so it needs to, have your fingerprints on what the priorities of the community are, whether that's long-term planning, whether that's transportation, parks, streets, etc. So you don't necessarily need to make a change unless you have one. We could just say noted, and but if you want information prepared other than getting that tax capacity, or you want to look at different scenarios, that's feedback that's important to us, and we can prepare that for your September 5th work session.
You can move on.
Eric?
What about looking at our neighboring communities' franchise fees? So you're able to put that in as part of the comparison.
Yes, I was going to look into doing that.
Okay. So one of the things that we talked about is, as folks will look at Chaska's numbers, that doesn't include the franchise fees. I think it would be really smart to, if we're able to, include that with an asterisk, so residents can compare their tax burden to what a Chaska resident pays on average with those.
I think we've done that in the past, haven't we, when we sent it out to the public? Yeah, okay, good.
This is like a little teeny minor thing, I just have a question. 3/4 ton and 1 ton, what's the difference other than an F-250 and an F-350?
The funny answer is a 1/4 ton, but
That's what my brain is saying.
one is like a regular heavy-duty pickup truck.
Yeah.
The other one would have a box and a sander on it. It'd be a little bit.
Okay, so it's more than just between an F-250 and a 350. I was trying to figure out 20 grand difference.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh, sorry, I said sorry. Deep regrets.
Deep regrets.
What about small regrets? Okay, anything else?
No, and that's only because I've kind
Yeah.
of had a preview, so.
So, Christy, so Brent and I, in the context of the public safety building, we're talking of let's just estimate high. So when I said okay, what's the budget increase gonna be? He said 50%. And so it's okay, aim high, go low. This number does seem big to me, but we don't have the whole story yet. So at this point, I'm okay with this because we don't know if 15.64% means $100 on a $400,000 house, or if it means $4,000, which it won't mean that much, but just generally speaking. I do think that this budget accomplishes absolutely everything that we set out to do in our strategic planning session. Moving us to the point where we will no longer be taking out equipment certificates, except for that big fire truck someday. But this is getting us to a little bit of a better fiscal place where we have money that we're saving for projects like a really expensive redo of a tennis court. So that we have that and we can say yes, community of Carver, 300 grand is a lot. That's more than what we paid for our house. But we've been saving for this, and we have this water heater fund, if you will, so that we can save for this. And we have the money, we're good for it, and we have a plan. And I think that everything we're doing, this is just another one of those building blocks. I feel like you all really heard us in our strategic planning session, and this is the exemplification of all of that. So I just kind of want to wait and see what that other half of the equation is, so that we know. I get it that initially 15.64 seems like a high number, especially when you see it in sequence there. That's the highest number on that slide. But I think there's a lot going on here. We're doing a lot of really good things to set us up well for a time in the future when none of us are sitting in these seats. I also think that you have a really good point, and I was just jotting down notes about future newsletter articles. I think we can continue to tell the story, and it's really in the weeds and it's very local government, but about franchise fees. Last year, Chaska made more money on franchise fees than our entire budget in the city of Carver. So that general fund budget, that's a lot of money when they're making $3.5 million on franchise fees. We would be able to have a lower tax rate too if we were taking franchise fees. But we heard loudly from our community in early 2020 that a tax by any other name is still a tax, so we decided not to go that route. So I think that this is the most transparent. I also know, and you alluded to it a little bit, that when you had an early draft that was 20-some%, I know that there are some tough conversations that Brent's having with each and every single one of you around this table, like, sure, do you need that or do you want that? And kind of whittling that pencil down. And I think that a lot of the hard work has been done. I also think that, I think we learned a lesson last year with Southwest Transit, but I think we'll be hopefully in a better place and get numbers for them by the end of September when we need to have our preliminary levy. And I know that traditionally we've really kept pretty close to what we said in September is kind of the end product that we have in December. But I think we learned last year that it would be good to have just a little bit of wiggle room, and it doesn't have to be a ton of money, but just in case there's another December surprise like we had last year with Southwest Transit, that we can accommodate and zig and zag, bob and weave, tackle and sports ball, appropriately for that kind of thing, so.
The tax information is due from the county this week, right?
They never give a due date, but I was saying 5 days when I talked to you last because I was hopeful.
Okay.
Usually comes around the 15th, it comes later every year. This is the latest it's ever been for me. That's since I've been working for the last 7 years. Yeah, this is the latest.
Oh, that's I'm sorry, I was waiting for the 5th. For the 5th one of us to have something to say.
Oh.
No, we're here. It's like, oh. Okay. So, unless there's anything else, I think we'll move on.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. All right, draft 10-year vehicle and equipment plan. And I want to give all of this as much time as it needs. However, it is about 6:30. We have 25 minutes because we like to have, I'm sorry. Yeah, so just, sorry, no pressure, bud.
Noted, thank you. So similar to the 10-year staffing plan, we're going on the same path with the vehicle and equipment plan. The steps are the same. Each department identifies the need for vehicles and equipment, and then in coordination with the finance department, we fine-tune that plan, and then we present the plan to the council and look for feedback, refinements, adjustments that we can make. So again, the path is the same from year 10 to 6. It's really conceptual, just based on trends and projections. That year 5 to 3, we're transitioning from conceptual to a needs justification system. Year 2 to year 1, we're really kind of laser focused on what we need to replace or what we need for additional equipment. And then we plan that into the budget. And budget year 0, we purchase that equipment or vehicle.
Just one kind of addendum to that, what Chad had mentioned is we've identified an initiative over the next year, so by the time we're doing this with you all next year, is to come up with a vehicle and equipment rating system. So think street and pavement management, where that road gets a 3 and this road gets a 10. So rather than just using this vehicle's 5 years old, we want to, develop a methodology that uses year of the vehicle, hours or mileage, maintenance costs, some other factors, and then give it a number, 1 through 5 or 1 through 10, that will hopefully allow us to kind of all look at the same kind of sheet of music and say, okay, I get what this vehicle is a 2, even though it might be a 2006 and this one might be a 1996. The 96 might actually, 96, 95, that's kind of a good era of things.
Yeah.
93 was maybe better.
93, that whole 90s generation. Anyway,
We'll talk
Back to
about the
Chad.
90s sometime.
So we'll present each department, public services, community development, and then fire department. So in 2024, we're looking for an equipment certificate to buy a 4th large plow truck just to accommodate all the new roads and developments. The 3 pickup trucks, one being a 1-ton and then 2 3/4-ton trucks. And then the loader, which would be in addition to the 1998 loader that keeps having ongoing repairs.
So we're gonna keep the second loader, or we're gonna get rid of that one?
We're gonna look into rehabbing it. We reached out to a couple of contractors that are getting us pricing for that, just as Councilmember Pershman brought up as an idea. So we will keep it for a couple of years and see if maintenance costs increase, then we'll trade it off. If it, if we can rehab it for a relatively small fee, then we might keep it for a little bit longer.
Do we need 2 loaders?
Uh,
I mean, the reason I'm asking is so that you have some direction, is it, when we buy the other one, is it worth looking to sell the old one and getting it off of our roster of maintenance?
Possibly, depending on how these rehab numbers come in.
Okay.
We'd like to keep the number like small, and if we can keep it small, and even though it might break down, if we have 2 that we could clear out cul-de-sacs with, but if it becomes cost exorbitant where it goes over that line, it's like, okay, let's just get rid of it. But we're operating it as our main right now. It's just not as reliable as it should be.
Correct.
Based on its vintage.
In 2025, doing a pickup for replacement to the fleet, and then also replacing the hot patch trailer.
Can you back up to that, Chad? This is, I think, a good opportunity to talk about, so we have $100,000 into capital that's kind of unassigned in the 24 budget. You can add this with the cash that you invested in this year and pay for that next year without a significant increase to your public services capital. So it doesn't mean that's the right number. It's just I wanted to kind of link the funding toward thinking about something in a future year and how that impacts your budget. Sorry, Chad.
No, Chad, for looking at this, so we're looking at 4 new pickups or 5 new pickups, 4 within 2 years. Are these?
It would be 3 pickups and then the 1-ton, but all of them would be basically driven as a daily driver.
What about our daily drivers now? Are they going to go away?
Our oldest one in the fleet is a 1997, so we would slowly replace those.
I have a spreadsheet that was Chad's talking off.
Okay.
I forgot to.
Awesome, thank you.
Let's see, 2026, again, adding another pickup truck just to support daily activities, and then also adding a utility cart. These utility carts are crucial for kind of off of the roads, in the trails, mowing and trimming operations, watering the downtown plants, and dragging fields. Anything that's not right close to a road, they're good for. In 2027, adding a wood chipper and a containment box. So this would greatly improve efficiencies for tree removal and tree trimming operations, and also there is a safety standpoint to it. We're loading the brush up on a 1-ton, and then we strap it down, we drive to wastewater, we dump, and then come back. It makes it so much easier and less travel time. In 2028, we'd be looking to purchase and replace the 1973 triaxle trailer. We use this for hauling any heavy equipment. Majority of the time, we're moving our backhoe from one job site to another job site, but really you could put anything on this trailer.
Is 1973 the year it came out or a model number?
That is when the trailer was manufactured.
Oof, okay.
So in 2029, we would look to add a compact loader to the fleet, just improving efficiency in snowplow operations. As the town grows, we're getting more cul-de-sacs, more parking lots, more downtown, and this would help in the snowplow operations. It's small enough that it doesn't tear up the turf like a large loader would, so it could be used year-round. Currently, we are leasing this type of a piece of equipment from November 1st to April 1st, just during our kind of snow fighting season. In 2030, we would be planning to replace another pickup, and again in 2032. And then the summary for the 10-year plan is here. And just so you know, we did add 3.5% roughly, and then rounded up for each year. So that pickup truck that you see is 70,000 in 2024, potentially could be 86,000 in 2030. Any questions before we switch to community development?
We'll come back to pickup trucks.
Not if you have a question right now.
No, he was looking
I'm
at
more-
something.
Oh,
I have a question, and it doesn't need to be answered today, but maybe the next time we see it.
Mhm.
For that 2029 compact loader,
Yes,
what are we paying? What's in the budget for the lease? And like I said,
I think it's
doesn't need to be
about
answered now.
25.
Yeah, I think each department gets like $12.50 or something, yeah.
Yeah, it's about $2,500 a month.
Okay.
all right, any other questions for public services?
Mhm.
Okay, community development.
Hi, thanks.
Hi.
Mine is pretty straightforward, it's just one slide. 2028 would be the FEV replacement, so we are targeting right now every 10 years to do a vehicle replacement, so this would be replacing the 2018 version that we got. And then 2031 is a position addition for a building inspector, so an additional vehicle for that inspector to do day-to-day inspections around the community. So 2 adds for my department, 1 replacement and 1 addition.
How many miles is going on the vehicle that you're using?
I don't know off the top of my head, we could get you that information, but I know that we don't use a ton of gas.
Right. The only reason I ask is because, well, 10 years may seem old for a car, but it's like your daily driver. I mean, if you're not driving to Minneapolis to work with it, back, going to the grocery store, like how many miles are really going on? Can we get more life out of something if we're not actually putting that much mileage on it?
Good feedback, and ours are so far out in projections, I would say they're placeholders at this point, so we can definitely discuss in 2027 when we're looking. But just a good, rule of thumb, we were putting 10 years, so the vehicle might be in great shape and we could kick it down the road in a couple of years from that point.
Chad included inflation numbers in his, are you comfortable with those numbers, or do you think?
I think so.
Okay.
I think the FEV right now is manufactured by Mitsubishi. I think in a couple of years they're going to be more common, so 70 feels okay right now.
Any other questions? Community development. All right, Callie, you're up.
Nice.
Callie's been waiting for
Yeah. Patiently.
Patiently, and now hurry up.
Yeah, 5 minutes. No.
No, we'll give you a solid 12.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm going to start off with talking about the duty officer program, just to bring everyone, kind of remind everybody about it, because there's some vehicles in here related to the duty officer.
Don't feel stressed. We can put you first on the.
No,
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay.
Back pre-COVID, we started a duty officer program. That duty officer runs from 6 p.m. till 6 a.m., 7 days a week, and then on most holidays. And what that means is any low-risk medicals or low-risk fire calls, such as CO alarms and stuff like that, 1 to 2 people are going. So normally a captain and then a fire chief respond to those calls, which means we're not paging out the whole department for those calls. So when we're talking about duty vehicles, keep in mind, like, it's preventing all calls to the whole department when those people are responding. And then they do still respond to all calls with those vehicles. So, but the first vehicle we have up is a command vehicle, which is normally used by the duty officer. It offers quicker response, has onboard safety equipment, AEDs, medical bags, Narcan, things like that for responding to calls. It offers to have a stronger presence in the community. And this is a vehicle that we talked about earlier. I think Brent brought it up. I think Lynn brought it up. This is a vehicle that we're going to present to the fire board about purchasing 2 used Tahoes from Chanhassen. And if we do that, we wouldn't be purchasing this vehicle next year. And then once we do purchase, if we do go ahead with those 2 hot Tahoes, this vehicle would then go back to, or go to public services into their fleet of vehicles. So it would get repurposed to them.
So if that one were to come out of fire department use and go into public services use, does that then take one out of this capital?
We're getting the list printed.
Okay. But
You'll see it.
does that relieve us of one of these from 2020?
No, that's a
No.
different department.
Okay.
We're short on trucks, like, so we have people doubling up, and so like, you're
Okay.
gonna see an influx of vehicles where Schultz is basically saying we were gonna take all that we can get at this point, especially when we have our seasonal staff, so using that Ranger, using this extra vehicle,
Okay.
rather than having folks use personal vehicles, like, there's a lot of times where frankly Chad is just driving around his vehicle just so we have.
So transferring that one to that department does not take this
Correct.
one out of here? Okay.
2025, we plan on replacing our second set of extrication equipment. The first set was replaced due to a donation from the Lions Club back in 2022. So this replacement would allow us to get rid of a gas powered unit with hoses that run to the, if there's a vehicle accident, we have a gas hydraulic pump on the truck, then we have to pull hoses to wherever that vehicle is. So this would allow us the opportunity to have the electric ones on our second engine. The older tools also have an issue cutting the newer higher strength steel that's in cars nowadays due to safety standards and stuff like that. So the newer sets have a higher cutting or spreading capabilities. And then
battery, they run off battery?
they do. They run off of like a normal dual battery that you can get at Home Depot.
They have that much power.
Yep, absolutely. And then one additional benefit of getting the newer electric stuff is anybody knows gas engines that don't run a lot is there's a lot of gums up in the carburetors, things like that. So this would eliminate some maintenance costs related to that and potential issues when we arrive on scene.
Who doesn't know that?
I know all about that. I've had a few meetings about that.
I just learned something.
I do have a question, Kelly. I know it was 2020, what year, would you say 2022 when we finally paid that out?
Yeah.
Okay, so I know I think it was around 36,000, so this is 9,000 more for 2025. You think that's a decent number for inflation and
Yep.
for the cost of what's going on?
Yep. Correct.
Any value for the old stuff?
We're sending our old set from the first engine to auction so we can, we're hoping to bring in something. It's not going to bring in 20,000, but it might bring in 3 to 5, but not.
And just kind of an add-on piece, like, our intention is to bring this to you every year and add a year, but also like revise numbers based on inflation, and so, good questions to ask, but we're also gonna be kind of moving that, so whether it's building inspections or fire, public services, that number over time is gonna change, based on kind of where we see the market at the time of purchase.
In 2026, we're hoping to replace our SCBA compressor station. This is a compressor air purification system, storage system, and refill station for our self-contained breathing apparatus. Our current unit is from 2010. It's kind of undersized for our current self-contained breathing apparatus, so it takes an extended period of time to fill them. In addition to that, the compressor is running real lengthy to catch up from that. If you think of it, we're normally not filling like 2 to 3 bottles. We're normally filling 20 to 30 bottles. So, extra 10 minutes every time times, it really adds up. So that's planned for 2026. We move on to 2027. This would be in addition to a third command vehicle that we use for a potential daytime duty officer that would, just like we do at night, they would then run during the day to help minimize those all-call, lift assist, things like that. In 2029, our plan would be to replace our 2003 grass rig unit with a crew cab pickup versus an extended cab pickup. If you guys ever want to come up there and watch us get into bunker gear and get in the back of an extended cab pickup, it's not exactly the best.
Can you just ride in the back? Is there room in the back?
No, but we do get in it, but it's really uncomfortable.
By then I'm in the bed, just
Yeah,
hold on.
It's got a huge unit in the back. And then also replace our UTV trailer with one that's sized properly for the UTV and holds medical supplies and grass operation supplies. In 2030, our plan would be to replace our 1990 engine 13, which was actually built for the old fire station, so it's actually compacted down, smaller in size than any of our other fleet. It has outdated safety equipment and ongoing maintenance issues. This would be replaced with an engine with a ladder, so if you can think of our last engine we bought, we built it similar to the same way, but we put a ladder on top to help with those house fires and those big, larger buildings that we're building within the community. And then 2031, we have budgeted or planned for a drone with a thermal imaging camera on it. This would be used at firefighting operations, real-time situation awareness, mapping, fire perimeter, identifying hotspots, and the ability to detect people. We use these a lot when we're searching for missing children, stuff like that. We call in neighboring departments to have.
So we don't have one of these?
We do not.
And we want to wait till 2031 to get one? Okay.
That big fire truck's
No,
fine.
I was thinking the same thing.
I mean, that seems like a really useful tool now.
And it's a relatively lower investment than what we're looking at here tonight.
Okay.
Okay.
We can talk more about that.
Okay. And then we would replace our CV1, our command vehicle 1, with a new one. And that's just used the chief officer used for day-to-day activities. So, and we put about right now between 12 to 15,000 miles on that unit a year. So by 2031, it would have over 100,000 miles on it. I think that's it, other than the summary page. So, any questions related to any of these?
Questions for Callie? No? All right, so the next slide is the check-in discussion. Preliminary observations. What questions do you have? Anybody have any thoughts, questions?
Oh, I do have one more comment. When we do decide to build an engine right now, or a big fire truck like that, it's about a 3-year build cycle. So that's, once we sign the purchase agreement, it takes 3 years for them to manufacture that truck. So.
I've heard horror stories
Yeah.
about that, and I don't want to get too far down the path, but I think we need to figure out. It's not what we're talking about tonight, but I'm curious how that's paid for and what increment and when you get it and how you guarantee that the technology that we're purchasing today is still good in 3 years and is the newest and latest and greatest. But thank you. Preliminary observations, questions?
From the fire perspective, I'm surprised we don't have any kind of drone utilization now. I've been part of search and rescue with drones along a river bottom where a child was found. And boy, if they had to call in another neighboring community's equipment, it would have been too late. Well, that was a few years ago, and that was a drone. So it seems like a pretty small investment to make in something that can make a really big difference. And I would propose looking at something sooner than 2031.
Does Carver County have one, or the dive team, or?
Carver County does not. They utilize, well, until last year, no other fire departments within the community, or Carver County had them. Now Victoria has one, Norwood has one. But before that, they were utilizing Shakopee and Minnewacan. Minnewacan was the first one to get one, and then Shakopee I think Shakopee has 2 now that are fairly familiar, or that Carver County uses a lot, but now recently Norwood and Victoria.
Is the $15,000, is that just the technology or is that the training that the pilots have to have to?
Well, I believe the first set of trainings when you buy it is covered,
Okay.
but then you have to have some sort of pilot license not like a pilot's license, but you have to have
Getting closer to like a pilot's license, yeah. Okay. I wouldn't hate seeing that moved up either. If there's any.
When you say moved up, do you have like a frame of reference?
I need a little more information, like okay, so you would use it, when would you take it out? So I heard, if there's a missing child, but how many times does that happen in a year? Probably not that many, but how many house fires do we have a year?
1 to 2.
1 to 2, okay. What are some other things you would use it for?
Well, like I mean, this doesn't happen, but like the plane crash in Victoria, they
Sure.
used it to find missing parts from
Okay.
the plane.
Mhm. And don't say it doesn't happen, because
Yeah.
it really did happen, yeah. Exactly.
We can use it at training, so like when we're at scale and we wanna show the firefighters like hot spots and how they protrude through different areas, flow paths, things like that, we could also utilize it on that.
Okay.
And this is gonna have infrared technology,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to it, I just wanna, if we're gonna talk about moving it up, like, I wanna know what it's gonna.
Well, and
If
there's
it's
some,
something that's gonna sit on a shelf, I'm not trying to say that you would lead us astray, but if it's something that we get and,
it's
sits
one
on
of
a shelf.
those things that if a house is on fire and you can
Mhm.
use the IR to determine if
Sure.
there's somebody in there, you know, that saves somebody or saved one of your people.
I also think you can't look at it just at Carver,
Mhm.
because like when these events happen in Chaska, Victoria, even though they have one and they're searching for a missing child, a lot of times we go there and help support, so then we would be able to help support and search that area. So versus having one drone up, you know, you potentially have two or three and be able to search a lot larger area a lot quicker.
Okay.
Okay, it is 6:50, so I am gonna ask, I hate kind of ending in the middle of a discussion, but, I think that's what we have to do.
Did you have a year that you wanted to,
I
that you were
I-
thinking?
don't, for me, if you're saying that we can wait until, if that's when the want or need is 2031, it just seems like, I'm just looking at this list, it seems like 2025 is a little bit of a lower year, so that would bring us to $60,000 that year. Maybe we bump it up, I don't like approaching this from a telling you what you want place, so it sounds like a piece of equipment. I like all of this though, especially for the fire service, that the sooner you have it, the sooner you would put it into use.
Yep.
But is 2025 sounding?
Well, the difference is this is an asset we don't have today, where it's not
Right.
something we're replacing. It's
Right.
capability we don't have. And it's a lot of capability you're adding for that kind of money. So if you could have it in 2025, I think that makes sense. You can cover a lot of area
Yeah.
with an IR camera that you can't any other way.
Yeah.
So
Are you-
that's my 2 cents, 25.
Okay, so
How does that fit in with our other purchases? 2025 is a big year for,
We'll find out, so
okay.
this is kind of a skeleton framework of each of these plans, and then when Tammy Omdahl from Northland Securities, you'll be able to see the total picture.
I'm not opposed to moving it up some.
Yeah,
thank
Just how it fits in is.
yeah, let's suggest moving it to 2025 and then taking a look at what that looks like, bigger picture. With that, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll
second.
second.
say aye, yeah.
Motion by Mary Johnson, a second, I'm gonna give it to Christie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.